The New York Giants tweaked their 53-man roster, so I'll have some thoughts about that and a whole lot more coming your way next on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, credential member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI, which is where you can find all my written work. And as always, we welcome on in our Blue Crew community members, our everydayers, our newcomers, and everybody in between. And we thank you for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And if you happen to be making us your first listen of the day, we appreciate that as well. So welcome. Today's episode of Locked On Giants is sponsored by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the promo code Locked On NFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. All right, Giant fans, on today's show, the Giants, as expected, made a few tweaks to their roster. Now, I'm going to go and I'm going to look at the areas that were most affected. I'm going to tell you what kind of has me a little bit concerned about the moves they made and how they might mitigate some of these concerns that I have. So we'll talk about that first. And then in segment 2, can the Giants start off 1-0 against the Washington Commanders? I'm going to tell you why I think they can. Segment 3, hey, why stop at 1-0? The Giants, I think, can go 2-0 with a win over the Dallas Cowboys in week 2 of the regular season. I'll tell you why when we get to that segment. So welcome on in to everybody. Let's get into it. All right. The New York Giants made some roster moves, a few tweaks on their 53-man roster, which were expected. They claimed 2 guys off of waivers, one of which was safety Bo Braid, the other Rico Payton. Both of them are defensive backs. Rico Payton's actually a cornerback. Rico Payton comes from New Orleans, Bo Braid from the Ravens. Now, both of these moves, not unexpected. They were primarily done for special teams and for depth. And what the Giants did in order to accommodate both of these guys on the roster, because the Giants had to make 2 corresponding moves, they cut Gunnar Olszewski as one of the moves, and Corey Black, cornerback Corey Black, the rookie, as the other. Now, the Olszewski's move is kind of interesting, and here's why. The Giants, in putting together their practice squad, they have 13 of the 16 available spots filled, plus they have a 14th spot, which is devoted to Jude McIntyre, who doesn't really count. He's got an exemption because he's part of the IPP. But the moves made here, Olszewski is expected to land on the practice squad when he clears waivers, which should be by noon, I think by noon tomorrow, meaning on Thursday. The Giants right now, the return specialist group, kind of a question mark, because they've got Smith-Marsette on the practice squad. It looks like Olszewski's going to go to the practice squad. That leaves them with 5 receivers: Malik Neighbors, Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton. Those are the top 3. Then Jalen Hyatt and Bo Collins. That kind of concerns me a little bit, the bottom of that depth chart. All right. Hyatt doesn't play special teams. Collins, I'm really not sure, if I'm being honest with you, why he is even on the 53-man roster. I thought maybe he would be practice squad, because he really had that one big play, and that was kind of it from him. He had some drop issues. He ran some incorrect routes. I'm really not sure why he's on the roster. He may not stay on the roster. I mean, there's still time, but, so they moved Gunnar Olszewski to the practice squad with Amir Smith-Marsette. And I think the reason why they did that is because of the salary cap. Now, when you are on the practice squad, you will get one salary. But if you are elevated for that week's game, you get a bump in salary. The Giants theoretically can elevate both Olszewski and Smith Marset 3 times apiece before they are subject to waivers. That gives them 6 weeks worth of elevations if they keep both guys on the practice squad. But I think that's kind of a risk. Now, Devin Singletary, he can return kickoffs if they need him to. And I do think, one of the two, either Smith Marset or Olszewski, if he lands on the practice squad, will be elevated to handle punt returns. But I just think the Giants might be playing with a little fire here. I'm not totally comfortable with what they have done at the receiver spot, especially at the bottom of the depth chart. I would have moved Bo Collins off the roster, kept Olszewski, and put Bo Collins on the practice squad. But that's just me, right? The coaches obviously see something in Bo Collins that I'm not seeing, whatever, and that's fine, Kid worked hard, I know that, but again, the production just quite wasn't there. So I'm a little concerned about how the receiver unit is made up right now for the Giants. The other concern I have remains at inside linebacker. Now, the Giants, the depth there, still a concern for me because Chris Board is a special teamer. Flanagan Fowles, a special teamer. Those two guys really aren't going to give you a whole lot at linebacker. So what happens now if there's a injury to one of Bobby Okereke, Micah McFadden, or Darius Mawaso? They're in trouble. All right. Now, I suppose they could have Dane Belton play a hybrid safety / inside linebacker. I suppose they can move Abdul Carter to inside linebacker on certain snaps, and that would solve the problem. But it's just basically putting a bandage over a big gaping wound, as far as I'm concerned. So I know, at the end of the day, you can't solve every roster problem, but some of these roster issues are of their own doing. And I'm going to give you one more that is kind of a concern for me, and that's tight end. Theo Johnson has not been on the field for the Giants in the game since, I think, week 2. He was not on the practice field on Wednesday. I don't know what he's dealing with. Brian Dable, again, will not talk about injuries. Next week, though, we will find out what he is dealing with because the Giants will have to file an injury report. But they don't have, if Theo Johnson is nursing something that potentially might keep him out of action week 1, and I don't know at this point if that's going to be the case. The Giants lost Greg Dulcich to the Miami Dolphins. He signed with the Dolphins practice squad. So that leaves the Giants with Daniel Bellinger, Chris Manhertz, and the rookie Thomas Fidone, if Theo Johnson cannot go. So I'm curious to see how that plays out. They have another week, obviously, before they go down to Washington, but I'm a little concerned with that because I would have found a way to keep Dulcich. I know they tried to get him to the practice squad, and I still say, if I had been them, I think I would have kept Dulcich over Chris Manhertz. Chris Manhertz is in his 30s now. I don't think he's the long-term answer. I think Dulcich could have been a longer-term answer, and I'm just kind of surprised that they went that route. One other area I'm going to just quick mention, and that is offensive line. Now, the good news is Andrew Thomas was out on the field for Wednesday's practice. Is he going to be ready for week 1? That is the question. That is what they are, aiming for. They're optimistic that will be the case. But you know what, folks? I would not be shocked if Andrew Thomas does not play week 1. They want to get him into football shape. And, now the worst thing they can do is in these next few days. And remember, they're off Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They're back to practice on Monday. They have Tuesday off, and then it's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for practice. Is that going to be enough time for Andrew Thomas to get himself football ready? It might be. I mean, he's a veteran. It's not like, this is his first rodeo. But I would not be stunned if Andrew Thomas is not ready for week 1 and James Hudson III has to play. I think that is a realistic possibility. Is it the end of the world if that happens? No, not necessarily. You'd like to have Andrew Thomas out there, but at the same time, you want to make sure that he is ready to go, that there is no danger of him, heaven forbid, pulling a groin or a hamstring or any kind of soft tissue injury. And I think that's why they want to be a little bit cautious, if you will, with Andrew Thomas and the reps he gets. And we don't know how many of his reps that he got in Wednesday's practice, because again, there was no practice report in terms of the injury report. So there was no, full practice, limited or anything like that. So right now everything's kind of a secret, but I can't imagine Andrew Thomas took his full load, at least not, initially, especially after just coming back off of the PUP list. So that's something to keep an eye on. All right. Now, coming up next, we're going to get away from some of this gloom and doom that I've started off with. I'm going to tell you why the New York Giants can go 1-0 to start the season. That's coming up right after this. Hey, Giant fans. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Whether you have your eye on big-name quarterbacks or breakout running backs, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in the game. Prize Picks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. The flex play option is a total game changer. Even when one of your picks misses, you can still double your money. And Prize Picks puts their members first so that all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. So go on and download the Prize Pick app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 play. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, Giant fans, we have an important request of you. Locked On wants to hear from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Please go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. And again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks so much for helping us out. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, and let's be optimistic now, shall we? Let's talk about why the New York Giants can potentially start the season 1-0. Now, as you know, the Giants head to Washington. They're going to face the Commanders to open up the season. This is a team that the Giants last year, despite having been swept, they played the Commanders pretty tight. I don't think they lost any one game in the 2-game series by more than 7 points. All right, I think the combined actually was something like 5 points or something like that. But the point being is the Giants play the Commanders tight. Now, why do I feel good, especially good, about the Giants' chances? The simple answer, the Washington offensive line. Now, there's a couple of things with the Washington offensive line that hold true as of today. And next week, obviously, when we do our crossover show with David Harrison of Locked On Commanders, he'll be able to fill us in a little bit more on the situation with the offensive line. But let's talk about how it stands today. So right now, the Washington offensive line, they don't have a backup to starting center Tyler Biadasz. All right. That can be disastrous in itself if, heaven forbid, there is an injury to the starting center. But the bigger issue for the Washington offensive line, they will not have guard Sam Cosmi for this game. I think Cosmi was placed on injured reserve, designated to return. All right, now, Cosmi, why is that such a big loss? He was, in 2024, the Commanders' second best pass blocker, according to Pro Football Focus. He was the fourth best linemen in terms of fewest pressures allowed. You put Abdul Carter or Brian Burns on that side against whoever the replacement is, let them meet. And I think they will. So pass protection against that giant pass rush, that could be a problem. Now, obviously, for the pass rush to be a problem, the Giants have to stop the run. And remember, Washington traded away Brian Robinson Jr. They're going to roll with Austin Eckler. Washington's skill players at the running back, Eckler's been a good running back, but I just feel like they lost a little punch there, if you will, in their run game. And I am thinking that, with a healthy Dexter Lawrence, Giants should be able to stop that run game. And then here's the other reason why I feel particularly optimistic that the Giants can top the Commanders. This is year 2 for Jaden Daniels. Now, Jaden Daniels had a really, really good year last year. But as I often say, and as I have often seen in the NFL, when it comes to rookie quarterbacks, they might look like superstars in year 1, and then once the rest of the league manages to gather tape on them and figures out how to game plan against them, especially when they are a rookie quarterback playing in a first-year system, as was the case with Jaden Daniels last year. Jaden Daniels, first year with Cliff Kingsbury as the offensive coordinator. Dan Quinn was a new staff, had a new staff. He was a new head coach. The Giants, as well as the rest of the NFL, have a chance to catch up and say, okay, what are some of the holes in what Washington does with their quarterback? What are some of the holes in Jaden Daniels' game? That's why a lot of times you see a sophomore slump. So that would be another reason why I would have maybe a little bit of concern if I'm Washington and going up against the Giants. And then I'll just throw in for good measure, Terry McLaurin. Now, Terry McLaurin, as everybody probably knows by now, finally resolved his contract situation with the Commanders. Is he going to be in football shape? I don't know what, obviously what's going on as far as how they're practicing him, if he's getting any contact and whatnot. But that would be something to keep an eye on, especially when a guy has not really took part in football activities all summer long. There's always the risk of something happening. And I'm not wishing anything bad on Terry McLaurin. He's a really good player, exciting to watch. But these are all factors I think you have to take into consideration when it comes to the Washington Commanders. So I do think the Giants will keep it competitive. I think the early key to that game is going to be the Washington offensive line versus the Giants pass rush. And I think you're going to see a different result. I really believe the Giants go 1-0 to start the season. So that being said, if you like the sound of that, I'm going to tell you in the next segment why it's possible the Giants can go 2-0 to start the season. That's coming up right after this.
This episode is brought to you by Rougiette. I know that you've probably heard of Viagra and Cialis, maybe even tried them, but if you're looking for something that goes beyond the usual pill, then it's time to meet Rougiette Ready. Their 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue, kicks in fast, on average in about 15 minutes, while some of those usual pills can take up to hours, and the effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can always stay confident in control when the moment is right. And it's all completely online. You can read real customer reviews on their website, and over 150,000 men have already made the switch. Just head over to Rougiette.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, and manufacturing review. Please visit the Rougiette website for full safety information.
All right, Giant fans, the NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure that you are ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you'd like to bet. Player props, building a same game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app right now by visiting fanduel.com to get started. That's fanduel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to Locked On Giants. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. And just a reminder, debuting next week on Wednesday, 1 hour show, the Locked On Giants Squad Show. It's a new podcast, kind of a subdivision, if you will, of Locked On Giants. It's going to be hosted by Jay Berman. It's going to feature myself on the panel and former Giants cornerback, Super Bowl champion Mark Collins. And we're going to bring you the latest analysis, news, and all kinds of good things in the 1 hour live stream. We hope you will join us. I will let you know once I know the timing of it. I think it's going to be at, I can't remember if it's 5 or 5:30, but we're going to have a 1 hour live stream. And of course, you will be able to participate in that. If you've never been in a live stream, you want to check that out. That's a lot of fun. And if you missed the live stream, no worries. We're going to replay it for you. It'll be available here on the Locked On Giants podcast channels, whether you look at YouTube or our audio platforms. So don't worry, you won't miss it. All right. If you like the sound of the Giants going 1-0, I'm going to tell you why I think 2-0 is possible. Now, in week 2 of the season, the Giants are going to face the Dallas Cowboys down in Arlington, Texas. The Cowboys, the last few years, have had the Giants' number. This is the year I think it stops. Why do I say that? Look at the Cowboys' defense, all right? They are continuing to play a game of chicken with Micah Parsons, the inside linebacker. And Parsons, let's face it, you look at that Cowboys defense, the depth chart, it's not very impressive without Parsons. It's very watered down, I think. And I have some stats here that I'm going to share with you. When Parsons played for the Cowboys last year, they allowed 5.7 yards per play. They allowed 4.9 yards per rushing play and 6.9 yards per passing attempt. When Parsons was not in the game, and this, by the way, is all per True Media, when Parsons was not in the game, they allowed 6.2 yards per play, 4.7 yards per rushing play, 8.6 yards per passing play. So really, with the exception of the run plays, every number went up when Parsons was not in there. Again, I don't know what Jerry Jones is doing down there, but I just find it odd that Jerry Jones is playing this game with Micah Parsons, that, he's counting on Micah Parsons, who is under contract, saying, you know what? I'm not going to risk missing a game check. I'm going to show up and I'm going to play. I think that's what Jerry is trying to do. So how dug in is Micah Parsons going to be? And then also, similar to the situation with Terry McLaurin, if Micah Parsons decides he does want to play, that he doesn't want to miss a paycheck, what kind of shape is he going to be in? Is he going to be in football shape? Probably not. So if I'm the Dallas Cowboys, this game that I'm playing with Micah Parsons, very dangerous, in my opinion. For the Giants, hey, go on, keep playing it. But it's a risky game because that Cowboys defense is just not overly impressive in the front line. Okay, so I'm going to read you who they have. Okay, so the Cowboys, if they do not have Micah Parsons, Marshawn Nealon, Osa Odigizua, Solomon Thomas. And then if there is no Micah Parsons, Dante Fowler Jr. is listed as the backup, followed by James Houston. That's the front line. The linebackers, They have, let me see, they have Maris Luafu, Kenneth Murray Jr., and yeah, so those two. They have the two linebackers, okay? The strength of the Cowboys, arguably, maybe you could say their defensive secondary, but even that group, they've got Malik Hooker as one of their safeties, Donovan Wilson. They've got Trevon Diggs, who's a pretty good player, and Deron Bland, who was kind of a good player for them as well, the nickelback. That defense, folks, I don't know. It seems so watered down from what it was years ago. And I think given the improvements the Giants have made at the quarterback position, that they can maybe exploit that Cowboys defense and go 2-0. Wouldn't that be nice? I mean, look, I think the odds are going to be against the Giants. They're not going to be favored in either the Washington game or the Cowboys game. I think if the odds makers will probably say the Giants don't start 2-0. If anything, the odds will probably favor the Giants starting 0-2. But as we all know, folks, the Giants cannot afford to go 0-2 in those first two games, not against division opponents. That would pretty much be an early death knell against the season. Because the easiest way to a playoff berth, especially for a Giants team who I think this year at best can hope for a wild card, you got to win in the division. And if the Giants can get out to a 2-0 start, boy, are things going to look really, really good by the time they get to week 3 and they host the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. Because the other thing, folks, to keep in mind, a 2-0 start, that's going to continue to build the confidence that started to build up in the preseason. People say, oh, preseason doesn't count, forget about it. No, the record doesn't count. But the buildup, the confidence, the ability to say, hey, yeah, we won the game. We know how to win the game. Just by doing the little things, by beating the man in front of you. Never mind the fact that there's no game planning or strategy or anything like that. Just good old-fashioned mano a mano. That builds confidence. And right now, this Giants team, in my estimation, they got confidence. They just need to go out there, not get too cocky, not get too over, hyped or anything like that. Play their game and win. I think they're capable of doing it. And boy, wouldn't it be nice. All right, Giant fans, that is going to do it for this edition of Locked On Giants. As always, we thank you for making Locked On Giants part of your day. And if you made us your first listen today, we thank you for that as well. NFL fantasy draft season is here. So for your next listen, go find Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast with hosts Vinnie Iyer and Michelle Magdziuk. Listen every day to prep for your fantasy draft and become the most informed manager so that you can take home your league's trophy this season. Find Locked On Fantasy Football on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, Giant fans, I will see you tomorrow with an all-new episode of Locked On Giants.